Hey guys, my name is Brian. I am with BK Trading Academy. My wife and I own a global academy from people all over the world, and we're proud of it. I've been trading for about 15 years, and my wife's been trading for about 10 years. And I want to show you one simple strategy how you can become profitable and completely leave your 9 to 5 job, or if you just want to make supplemental income. Now, I know you heard this a lot, but this one here, I am absolutely telling you the truth. And there is one thing that every single market has in the entire world, whether if it's the real estate market in the United States, whether if it's a grocery market in China, or whether if it's the stock market in Canada. They all have something in common, supply and demand, and that's why it works. I'm going to show you how to spot these supply and demand levels, how to trade it and execute it every single time, even when you're at work, and profit. Now, the bad thing about this strategy is that it doesn't happen often. It probably happens once every year or so, give or take. But the good thing is there's a lot of currencies, stocks, or whatever you trade, whether it's metal, where these strategies happen every single day. So I'm going to show you this, guys. Stay tuned, and you want to watch it to the end, because I can say with 100% certainty that supply and demand rules the market, and you will spot these levels every single time on your chart. I'm not going to play around with you guys in this video. I'm going to give it to you straightforward. This is how I retired, and this is pretty much our B swing strategy that we've been implementing with our academy for years. Let's get into it. Now, how do you find your supply and demand levels? It is the easiest thing that you can find on any chart. And I'm going to show you. You can always get in at the beginning of a trend before anyone ever knows that it's the beginning by spotting when it ended last. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Supply and demand. All right, so there's some set rules that you need to apply in order to find these supply and demand levels. All right, so number one, find the end of a trend. You can predict the beginning of a next trend. All right. Let me show you exactly what I mean here. So if we go ahead and scroll over and we take a look at Euro AUD, I'm on the higher time frame, and this only works on the higher time frame, whether if you're on the daily or the weekly, or even the monthly sometimes. But overall, you want to spot these trends on the higher time frame. You can't find them unless you're on the higher time frame. So as I scroll over, what I'm showing you here is that we have an uptrend, and then we have a downtrend. You can see how price is kind of playing like a ping pong ball, right? Supply is always at the top. Demand is always at the bottom. So, and if I get my measuring tool, anywhere from the top of this red line here to the bottom is about 700 pips. So if you traded $1 for for that price movement, you would have made about $700. So it's pretty significant, right? So you can see these peaks and bottoms. The top is supply, the bottom is demand, and it's ranging, and it becomes predictable when you spot this. So when price comes up to the supply, it's going down to the demand, and so on and so forth, and eventually it's going to break higher or lower. And guess what? How high did price rise? So if I scroll left, and I'm going to continue to scroll left, you can see that price rose all the way to where this previous area was. This was our major supply zone here. Now, you may be asking, well, price shot all the way up here, and you're absolutely right. This was the pandemic of March of 2020, and these levels are unheard of because of the pandemic. So the actual normal area would have been around here. Right where this red line is, this was February 2020. And then when March 2020 hit for COVID-19, it rose to levels that it normally shouldn't have. This is not normal because of the pandemic. And then it started to drop. And guess what? It came right back here. So this was our trend here. And then it stopped here. And you can see in the past, as it came back to retest the zone. And look how beautiful this area is. This is a real deal supply level, multiple times, multiple times. And if it comes out just a bit, it's completely okay. But you can see how it touched this level multiple times. This is a supply level. Now, back to up here. This is also a supply level. Remember, supply is at the top, and you're going to have multiple supply levels, but this is what actually helped me to retire and stop working my 9 to 5, because I couldn't trade every single day and watch my charts. I would enter only at supply levels like this or demand levels. Now, each candle represents a day. So I would be in trades for days and sometimes weeks, and I would hold it to sometimes in the middle of the channel and rack up maybe about 350 pips or so, or to the top, just depending on what's going on and what I preferred. So whenever you spot these levels, and let's say you see price come back to this zone here in the future, if you look left, you would see that this was a previous supply level back here just before COVID spiked it up here, right? And you could have shorted possibly short it. It's important to know fundamentals and news. This here was all because of the tariffs. Now, even though we're trading Euro AUD, the Euro was affected due to the tariffs in the United States. So price rose and it continued to rise inside of our level here. But this zone right here was our new supply and it dropped. So even if I pause it for a second here and get my measuring tool, from in the zone down to how far it dropped is 800, almost 900 pips. So to put it in perspective, if you traded $2 a pip, you would get 900 times 2, which is $1,800 within a couple of days, just from only knowing supply and demand. Now, this is what's going to happen in the future. Here is my new supply level. Remember, this was a key supply level. I have 100% certainty that price will come back down eventually to this zone. And when it does, because this was a previous supply level, this will be our future demand level. And once it comes down here, it's going to shift up pretty significant, at least to this zone here. And you can easily rack up, if I get my measuring tool, 430 pips or so, give or take. Even if the trend continues to head to the downside. Remember, every trend needs an impulse move, a pullback, an impulse move, and a pullback, and so on and so forth, until it gets down to this demand level here at the bottom. So the next rule says the trend must be more than 6 months away from current price. Now, the greater, the better. And that also goes with number 3 here. So the longer, the better. And those are the best areas, guys, I'm telling you. Now, watch this. I'm going to show you another demand level as I scroll down. And this is how you can tell what's a demand level, because there's nothing here. There's this huge imbalance here. Look at this huge imbalance here. So if price happens to come back down here eventually, this is where I would buy all day long, where this red rectangle is, all day long. And you can hold it for a while, for a couple hundred pips or longer, or even shorter if you want. But here is definitely going to react, because back here, this was back in August 2022, and then April 2022. And if it comes back here in the future, let's say September 2025, I would guarantee you that price will reject, and this will be a possible trend reversal, because this is a major demand level right here because of the imbalance. Remember, supply and demand rules the entire world, regardless of where you're at in the world. And why did price stop here in the first place? Right? So let's say that price was here and it was coming down. You would want to know how far price could come down. So if I get my rectangle and let's just kind of draw it all the way across right here, look how it came right at this level here. So whenever you see a trend start, that's where price could come. So this here was our uptrend right here. You can see our higher highs, higher lows, and then it broke the trend. We no longer were in an uptrend, we were in a downtrend, and it pivoted. Right from this level here, this is where we began our new uptrend. So oftentimes when you find new trends, whether if it's uptrend or downtrend, that can tell you where your future demand or supply level is, and that's where you would want to enter and exit. And this lined up exactly where it lined up here in the future. This here, to give you an idea, if price ever came down further, this would be the ultimate trend reversal right here, because this was the beginning of a trend back in 2017. And you can see how the trend climbed up. Now to fast forward, and what rule number 3 says, the longer the previous trend, the more you'll profit in the future. So if we go back here and we see how long this trend was in the past, that means if it comes back here in the future, you'll profit just as much, if not more. So if I grab my measuring tool and continue to climb this, I'm already at 1,500 pips or so, and it continued to climb at least double before it starts to reverse. So if price comes back to this area, we should see an aggression just as much. And even if you don't want to hold it that long, I always suggest to hold at least 1/4 of the way, maybe half, because you can, that's almost guaranteed, guys. And you can leave that trade and forget it. And if you find more trades just like that, you will profit tremendously. Now, let me show you a stock just to kind of prove that it works. We're going to take a look at Disney, and our academy actually has taken this trade and we called it out, right? So let's look at Disney here. I'm on a weekly time frame. Now, according to our first rule, we find the end of a trend, you can predict the beginning of a trend. So let's take a look at this here. We found the end of a trend right here. We're in a downtrend, pretty aggressive. And if I get my measuring tool just to prove to you that it's a significant trend, it dropped over about 30%, which is about 34 points. That is pretty significant for stocks. This was back in April 2025. And I called it with my Stocks Academy that, hey, if it comes back down to here, we're buying. And let me show you exactly that image here. So if I scroll back up, this was back in April, and you'll see it here, April 18th, 2025, another BK Invest Pick Disney Part 1. And so I talked about why we would get in. It was around $80 or so a share. And this is how the chart looked back then. We can see back here, this downtrend from March 2020, that was a pandemic. It rose, came back down at this zone in October 2023, rose significantly, and now came back down in April 2025, and we would take it to around that same zone. So this is where it was when we got in at this demand level. And fast forward, we're here, and look how aggressive price has risen in just about 4 weeks or so. And now we've profited pretty decent. We could have gotten out halfway or a quarter of the way, but we decided to take it all the way up to here because it's Disney. It's a Fortune 100 company and it continues to rise in nature. The reason why it dropped in the first place was because of tariffs. High impact news is always going to disrupt supply and demand. But once things start to get back in order, we bought at this area back in April when Trump has paused the tariffs, and it continued to rise just like the nature of Disney should, because it's a Fortune 100 company, also a large cap company as well. So notice here, I put the dates, October 2023 when it was here prior. That was more than 6 months from April 2025. If I go back again, when it was last here, it stopped at this zone here. That was March of 2020. So if I calculate March of 2020 and fast forward to October 2023, look at this huge imbalance here. That's why it works. This is all supply and demand. And this is the B-swing strategy that we teach in our academy. You'll also see the B-Swing PDF that we have on our website at bktradingacademy.com. And it teaches you how to find these supply and demand levels. So if you're confused of trading all of these candles here and it's hard to identify where you're at, what's going on, because it's a little complex, I ask you to go to the higher time frame, like the weekly time frame, and find peaks, find consolidation, find these imbalances here, these gaps that you see here, find where price has touched your supply level dozens or multiple times, time after time, or your demand level, time after time after time. More than likely, these huge gaps, when it comes back to that zone, it will happen again, and you can easily profit without worrying about your chart. To me, that is the best strategy that you can have if you're working a 9-to-5 job, if you just completely gave up on trading. It doesn't take a genius to find these supply and demand levels. And if you struggle finding these levels, you can either, one, get our B-Swing strategy on our website, which looks like this, bktradingacademy.com. You'll go to products, and then here's the B-Swing right here. It is $29.99 currently, and it will break down everything for you with colorful charts, descriptions, what you need to do step by step. If that is not enough for you, you can enroll in our Lifetime Academy, where you're stuck with us for a lifetime. You can ask us questions in our private community, such as this. You'll have video modules that gives you step-by-step information, and you'll also have a B-Swing room here where you can drop this stuff here, or you can find information on how to do it. For example, Lillian here has spotted a B-Swing for this company here. She understands what B-Swing is. Here's another one where I dropped of Starbucks, May 2022. It came back here in May 2024, then July 2024, and now it started to come back. And this is where you will want to buy if it came back down to this level. So time after time, this happens, and it just works because this is supply and demand, and it rules the market. So guys, that being said, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who is struggling or who is a new trader and looking to get their feet wet in trading, because to me, this is the most profitable profession you could be in, where it takes the least amount of time, and you can take it on the road and very little overhead to invest. Guys, I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.